Hi, so I wanted to do a little video of ApertureLab and just show folks that it's a real thing and kind of a little bit of a walkthrough of how it's all set up. So the purpose of this of ApertureLab is to simulate synthetic aperture imagery, both with sonar and with radar. I have it in the sonar mode right now. I won't walk through every single feature, but I kind of want to just highlight just a kind of a very coarse overview. So in the middle here, you have the scene that's laid out, which includes different types of terrain that can be procedurally generated, as well as objects. So you can put these, you can zoom in here. Let me zoom in real quick. So you can put some objects and move them around and rotate them and all that kind of fun stuff. There's a cross track and a long track grid, so everything is calibrated in terms of size. I should point out also that you'll see there's these kind of two rectangle or squares here, where this white one is inscribed inside of this dotted gray one. So the scene extent is what gets simulated. This is what time series is generated for the system. So the idea is that you're going to generate time series for this entire patch of seafloor here, and then this white area is really the scene that you're going to beamform. This is your image plane. So what I'm saying is that the stuff out here that's outside this white box is not going to appear in the image. Everything that's inside the white box will, and I can move that white box around because there might be cases where I want to shrink this white box because I may only want to beamform certain parts of the image. I also need to account for the fact that to fully insonify these ends here at the far ranges of the image, because you can think of the beam as this conical shape that you're going to want to simulate with the vehicle being outside of that imaging plane region, because you can imagine if, say, the sonar, the receiver transmitters here, that beam is going to extend out this way and then also down this way, so it'll make this kind of V shape in this view. And to make sure that we fully give support and insonify this pixel correctly here, so it's fully focused, you have to generate a little bit of the scene of the image out. You have to simulate a little bit of the scene outside of the image. So again, just to remind everybody, this simulates complex valued time series from the hydrophones. I can zoom in here, I can see the sonar track, I can change this. These little dots are where the sonar pings, so you can see here that I have some a little bit of motion in there as well. And then as you hover over these objects, you get some a little bit of metadata, including the target strength and then what kind of orientation it is and what the mesh is that's used. And you can see here we have a bunch of meshes that are imported. I have some debris fields, shipping container and whatnot. On the right here, I have some set up to generate procedural features right now. This is actually going to be extended to support the same node kind of paradigm that Blender supports. So you'll be able to, on the fly, string together like Musgrave or Perlin-based procedural features as well, just like you can in Blender, except they'll all be within ApertureLab here. And there's a couple other things. You can look at run history. You can look at output. If there's an image you just had beamformed, it'll show it here. There's also some bottom features. You can add pockmarks. You can add trawl scars, that kind of stuff. Again, all procedural. And then on this side, or in this little validator window here, if there's anything about how you have the system set up, suppose you're close to the resolution limit in terms of your array geometry and whatnot, it'll just give you a little warning and tell you that. And then when you click run simulation up here, this will run the simulation. You'll start seeing output here in terms of each of the little steps that it has to do to generate the sim, including the height field, the object placement, and then the actual point scattering simulation. And then there's a couple other features up here. The density, so how many scatters you want per square meter. Do you want to just simulate and then beamform, or just simulate? And then you can also adjust the resolution of this grid that you see here. So that's kind of a very coarse overview of what we support. There's a bunch of other stuff, including sonar geometry and design. There's also, let me pull this up here. there is where is it here? Well, that's not quite it. There's another menu in here, which I can't find at the moment. Um, and what it has over here is the attributes of the scene. So you can adjust it's like a big tree structure, and you can adjust pretty much everything by hand if you want to. I don't know why, actually, it's not showing up here at the moment, but we'll come back to that. So yeah, there's the run menu, the settings menu. There's a bunch of preferences in here about what kind of output products you want, how you want those formatted. There's also some trade-offs that you can make between fidelity and speed. What kind of beamformer do you want? Do you want a time domain back projector? Do you want a Stolt, like an Omega K frequency domain beamformer? You can also do side scan. So you can do real aperture if you want to as well. And then there's this nice little email notification thing here. So anytime you run a sim, you can have it send you an email when it finishes. That way you can go off and do something else. And when you get a little alert maybe on your phone, it says, hey, the sim's finished. It'll just say, hey, ApertureLab is done. Here's what I did. Here are the output products. And, did I succeed or fail? But the one reason, the one thing I started this video for is I wanted to show folks one of these tools I have, which is this SLC viewer. This is the single look complex viewer. So let's just open up a file that I recently ran in here. And I want to go through and show this. And the reason I think this is important is it shows the power of SAS imagery in that when you have this single look complex image where each pixel, instead of it being just a magnitude value, say 0 to 255 or 0 to 1, these are actually complex valued pixels. So each pixel has a real and imaginary number in it. And what this allows you to do is it makes this SAS data essentially like a living data set. So when you capture the stave data from the sensor and you save that data, there's many ways to process it to extract information out of it. And some of those ways may not even be invented yet. So the idea is that by hanging on to that data and saving it, post-processing methods may improve over time. That those might include, say, autofocus and bathymetry estimation algorithms. All that stuff can improve. So as you save this data, you might have, say, a bad collection. Maybe there was a lot of sound speed error in the data, or you were in a really terrible environment that the vehicle wasn't driving very straight, and you might not be able to form an image. But if you save that data over time, especially with AI algorithms now, and with compute, with Moore's law, compute doubling every 18 months, there's a chance that in the near future, that data may become usable again. So one of the things, though, I want to show with this data is that when you have this single look complex image, what you can do is you can essentially steer the beams you can take the synthetic aperture and essentially call out certain aspect angles where you're only interested in sonifying different angles of the scene. And essentially what this allows you to do is you can essentially move the angle at which this scene was insonified at. And what you'll see is that these shadows back here will start to sweep. But the trade-off is that you'll lose resolution. And each one of these images that you can generate where you look at a specific angle, in the radar world, they often call those looks. So we're going to turn on enable looks here. You can see that, yep, this just went kind of kafooey, but watch this as I change the position of the looks. So as I go through here, as I'm sweeping through the different looks, what I can see is I'm starting to see the shadows bend. So my human visual system, let's hit play here, and I think this should just kind of toggle back and forth. My human visual system kind of looks at this, and I have a model in my head of how this scene was generated, what the geometry is of the vehicle, like where it traveled, the direction that the sound propagated from and reflected and was received. And by doing this multi-look processing here, I can kind of gain some further information, which includes things like kind of a little bit of the geometry related to the objects. Also, if there's objects that are behind or maybe in a shadow from another object, like it might be able to get a different kind of look at those. So I don't know, I thought this was kind of a neat little viewer here to start to display this data so that folks can start thinking about how they might use it. And also, this is where I think world models for AI are going to be useful. Is the idea is that, suppose that the imagery comes into some AI method, the AI may be confused and say, well, I'm not so certain I know what maybe this particular object is here. And it, through its agency, would be able to say, oh, I know that I can post-process this in such a way on the fly to generate these looks. And based on what features come out of these looks, then it would know, oh, that's a palette or something like that here. But the idea is that AI algorithms are going to continue to improve, and being able to give them models of the physics of the scene and then coupling that with kind of processing tools that they can use to interrogate the scene, that's going to allow them to better understand the scene. So that's going to take us away from this idea of like, hey, I just want to do, say, ATR and look for palettes only, to this idea of getting a much richer description of this scene, which would include the ripples and the object shapes and the shadowing and all that kind of stuff combined into a holistic view, as opposed to just saying, well, hey, I'm going to run a detector that only looks for a certain object. And maybe when I switch environments, that object may or may not be recognizable in that. By giving the AI a world model and training in these physics, it's going to have a much better way to be able to discern these objects and essentially go from ATR to a true perception system. So that's it. Thank you for listening. And if you guys have any questions, just shoot me a message or post something in the comments. So thanks.